And as I arrived here, I just remembered a few comments. So, permaculture earthworks gets frequently mentioned. And yes, they are great. And here's an example. So, I took our excavator, our backhoe, and dug this. So, you see, there is a berm and this is a pond-like thing. It's not really a swale, but it's close to it. And it does fill when it rains. And 3 days later, the water is gone. And that is because there are no roots. There is no organic compound in all the material around, so it does not hold the water for long. And you say, yes, the swale is supposed to let the water soak in. Yes, it does. But the problem is, it's not soaking in. It flows through the sand and then goes somewhere else. So it will not stay here. Therefore, this doesn't really work. I don't mind. This is there for the future. So at some point, there will be shrubs and trees planted here. And then over time, that should change. And then the effect that you want to achieve by doing such earthworks will materialize itself. But in the meantime, this is not a solution. The solution is irrigation. It's not you reshape the land and then suddenly things happen. This is elsewhere. This is there where it rains every couple of days. And here, it does not rain for months. And therefore, nothing will develop. So what elsewhere is a good growing season, the summer, here is actually the death trap. Nothing will grow. And the people also disappear. So right now, there's nobody working out here. So I'm walking here and it's, 4 o'clock something in the afternoon, which is also the wrong time to be out here because it is pretty hot. I can feel this in the camera also. So nobody will work at this time of the day. People who actually have to do something, they work from 6:30 to 12. And that's it. And they won't come back ever, because then it's so miserable that you cannot really function anymore. As humans, we work very well up to 25 centigrade or degrees Celsius. So when it gets hotter, our brain basically gets, becomes cloudy. So we make mistakes, we feel miserable, and some of the mistakes can also be dangerous and deadly. So it is not a good idea to try to do things after the sun has started to heat the place up, because there's no shade. And therefore, you won't see anyone working, except very early, and people try to, during summer, be in the village. So they come out, feed the animals, and check on things early morning, and then they go back to the village and do something else. But they try to avoid to be outside. So this is the reality here, because we are at a point, I would think, where working outside has become, let me put it this way, impractical. And for a long time. And nowadays there are alternatives. So people prefer the alternatives. So now here we are at the Miyawaki forest. And like I said, I cannot fly the drone in this condition. But I will go in there and show you a few things. Angel and I did this last week. So I have a few spots in mind where I want to take you to. And then you get to see a close-up. And don't worry, there seem to be quite a few plants that have dried out. But that's how it's supposed to be. So there are some losses that are to be expected. It's part of the concept. But then I have to say, I am not a big fan of Miyawaki. And I will explain this later. And, well, let's not put it this way. It's not that I will explain this. I can express my feeling. And maybe I should say a few words while I'm still here. So the problem is that Miyawaki means you plant very dense. So we planted 5 plants per square meter, and then you set them up for competition. And the theory is that because of the competition, they will grow tall, go for the light, and whoever is able to reach for the light will continue to grow, and who lacks the ability to grow as quickly as required will then be shaded out, or is a plant that is happy in the shade or half shade. So that's the basic theory behind what Mr. Miyawaki, Japanese biologist, figured out. So that's all good. But then Japan is not a semi-arid or an arid area. It is pretty moist. And most of Europe, Northern Europe, is also very moist. Elsewhere, it rains every couple of days. So there's a shower here, a shower there, or you have a couple of hours rain that dribbles and dribbles and dribbles for hours. And as I spoke about our ponds, this is a lot of water. This is much more than we can ever wish to store in a pond. I did some calculations, and you can easily do this. So we basically would have to have ponds that are 4 meters deep and several hectares of surface. There is a water reservoir nearby, just a kilometer from here, that is 44 hectares in surface. It just sits there. And left and right of this huge body of water, that thing is about 20 meters deep, there is a desert basically. There's this bone dry and nothing grows in summer. So the water is there, but no plant can take advantage of it. But then you have an idea what falls from the sky. I already said this. So where you have this condition that it rains every couple of days, so twice or 3 times a week, there, setting up plants for competition is a very good idea. It seems to work very well in those areas, as you can find on YouTube by researching Miyawaki. But here in our area, something else happened, and I was afraid. And then, of course, you could say, yeah, you have to mulch. Yes, so let's talk about this. So here, we added the irrigation to help the young plants along. The irrigation also helped all the other plants, the natives. And amongst those, there is the pioneer species. And pioneer species, the weeds, are highly specialized plants with the sole purpose to prepare the soil for other plants that follow them in the ecological succession. So we helped those and provided them an edge, an advantage. So they grew much better because they can do with a drip what a tree cannot. So they grew very, very well. And I was afraid that they might shade out the things that we planted. It had not yet happened. Also from the side it looks like it were the case. You will soon see as I step in there. But it's not. So if you get closer, you will see, especially from the top. I wanted to fly the drone. I explained it's too hot. They are not shaded out. But the trees require more water than those pioneer species. Then also we got the advice, this is forest, so don't over-irrigate. Keep it short. And in summer, all these drought-tolerant species, they should get by. So they might not be growing, but they exist. So now when you see brown leaves, or leaves that have actually dried out, well, there are some losses. And that's okay, as long as it's not too much. So a few percent are expected to die because the conditions weren't right. Now my feeling is that in our area we can do something else that's more effective. And I hope that after a while, so ask me in a year, we can compare Miyawaki and the other way. So there, where the sunhemp and friends grow, and where next May we want to plant the Palovnia trees, we will do active management. So we will cut, we will bring in some chicken in a chicken tractor and do something in an active way to basically cut everything that grows for mulch and care for the trees and provide a lot of water so that the trees can grow well. And of course the others will also grow well, but we cut them down so they will not overwhelm the whole area. And then we get some fertilizer in via some poultry. So I think that might be a more effective way in our climate, given that you irrigate heavily. It's an experiment. I want to figure out which method works best. Of course, there's also benefit, because if I irrigate heavily and have the water, because I made the changes, and I can run poultry, well, there's something to eat also. So I get an early gratification by using that approach. Miyawaki might work out. We will see in 5 years or so how this area is then looking. But right now, that is my feeling. So don't get me wrong, I'm not against Miyawaki. I have not proven it not to work, nothing like that. So it's an ongoing experiment. But I wanted to express a thought that maybe you feel in a similar way. But I am more than willing to wait and see how this works. So it's just a couple of months. We are at the height of summer, the harshest conditions. So when the rain comes back, we will see more. And maybe then the Miyawaki method proves to be working out very well. So we will see. So now let me climb over the fence and show you the inside. And one more thing. So once we have built the first 2 boxes, we will also take care of this, because now we have all the bits and pieces so that we can also automate this. So once you have automation, you have to have automation for everything. So the moment you have one thing that you need to operate manually, that's going to be a headache all the time. So this is then the 3rd item on the list of things to automate. And then we can sleep better. So I jumped the fence and I'm now on the inside. Here right in front of me, nothing was planted deliberately so that you can go in here. But here to the left, you can see that plants are more or less happy. And interestingly, this guy and also the other one there, they are more happy than some of the others. So this is a native, by the way. This one here. This is the one that could overwhelm. This is the same species like the other one here. But you see that one, they looked very nice while it was moist. And now that it's drier, they are not so happy. But then this is a natural from here. We have this elsewhere, and they are not good for anything from a ranching perspective, because no animal wants to eat them. Locally they are called hara. And the other ones, like these there, you see, they seem to develop. I forgot what species they are. But okay, we will see when they are taller. I think there are some nut or fruit trees that are from here. There are also some pine trees in here. There is thyme and other things for the Mediterranean kitchen. And all these are there. They are not dying, so that's okay. But I wanted to show you something else here. So here, below those oak trees, there we have a bunch of young oats that we did not plant. So there, for example, there are a few. There are more. And this is all from acorns that fell, and the moisture allowed them to germinate. And they are growing. They are establishing themselves. So there is more. And also here. So that is very positive, because no pig was here, and therefore that worked. So now let me show you this. So there around the wobbler, of course there is more. Further away, it is the way like we planted it. That of course is one of the bed plants that are everywhere. And we cannot do anything about it. There is this other stuff that grows very tall, but it does not shade out, so therefore we are good here. This is another hara that is pretty tall and in good shape. So a little bit it depends on the individual. But then here you also see some of them that have brown leaves. We could say the plant is dying, but I'm not so sure. It might just shed the leaves to save on energy. I have to be careful here, by the way, where I step, because there's so many baby oaks here and there's loosened up soil that I could step on one, and of course I don't want this. And we have Bermuda grass that is also growing. It grows very well with very little moisture in loose soil. You see how this area looks like. So the ground gets more and more covered. Of course, it might be that some species that we planted we will lose, but so far I don't think that this is actually the case. So from the side it looks a lot worse than when you are up close. So if I crouch down and show you that, so let's see. So here you might have the impression, oh, it is all overgrown. When I pan to this side, but it's actually not, because the moment I go up and show you this from the top, you see there's a lot of space, and that means light does come in and all the way to the ground, and therefore nobody gets shaded out. That might change, but so far we are okay. And here to the left, that is the area where the tree fell, and the volunteer Alexander chopped it all down by using our battery powered chainsaw. It was the first opportunity to use it, and it worked out very well, especially for an oak tree, which is pretty hard. So we'll show you a bit more. Also some grasses that have created seed already. This hara grew very tall, and still it is shedding some leaves, but this must reach some water, a pocket. And here is another one that looks a bit strange. So it doesn't look very happy, but as long as there are some green leaves, it will keep going. And if you look at this one here, this is another hara. At the top there's still something, but the rest is basically on the way of dying. But that stuff is very hardy. This, by the way, is the soil sensor that we had to move. It was over there, but apparently there was a pocket created by the ants, and it always underreported. So we're always thinking that this area needs a lot more water, and now it is showing good values. So now we are going a little bit inside, and you see there are some Mediterranean condiments that we planted, and they look okay. There is a little pine tree as well, so I don't see any loss in here. Well, I do. So this one there might be a loss, but it's very little, and the soil is hot. So I see frequently soil temperatures at the 10 centimeter depth where the sensor sits of up to 38. And that is not how it's supposed to be. But then after irrigation, or when the sensor is in a little bit more populated area, it doesn't get that hot. So plants do help a lot. And the difference is easily 10 degrees Celsius between having plants and bare soil. And like I said, from the distance it looks like things get overwhelmed, like over there, but then you come closer and then you have a situation like right here, where there suddenly is a lot of space for the light to come through. And there's also something else growing. So there's a lot of green stuff that wasn't there before that is covering the ground, but it's not growing tall. So what we planted has the head above it. So that's good. So I'm not so overly concerned given the very harsh conditions. So I will now try to take you over there to this densely looking area to see how it looks up close. And let me try to have the camera a little bit down so that you can see. I also have to watch my step so that I find a good way between the plants. 5 per square meter does not leave a lot of space where you could walk. So I'm going a little bit like a crab here. And you see here there's other stuff that covers the ground. It's an interesting plant. It has those yellow branches, but it stays low. And things that we planted are not affected by this. So for example right here, there, oh, let's see, there is a little pine tree and the other stuff grows around it. There is a little crust on top, which is a way to keep in the moisture, and the soil is loose. So where I step, yeah, you can see here behind me, the soil is loose, and therefore there can be some moisture. This will be irrigated tomorrow again. So tonight we will irrigate the sunhemp and friends, and then tomorrow in the morning when Angel comes, he will open a valve and then we will irrigate the sector that has the lowest reading. And then we do this every day to give it its weekly boost, so to say. And you see, I'm now finding my way here through the other stuff. Well, here is a pine tree that got dry, and there are also other things that are a little bit on the decline. But Bermuda grass is growing, and there are also other things in here, but I'm not really seeing, to my disappointment, something that is pretty okay. So there's competition, so the little bit of water gets taken up by these guys here around this wobbler. So this might be a spot where we have to count the losses. But then right here, you see, it's pretty green and these guys are happy. There's another one. So this might be just that one spot. And see, there is one that is very happy right there in the shadow. So now it came into the light. So, and there's another one. So it's not so bad. Oh, these are good here. There's also an oak. Several. But there are definitely dry ones. But there, where there is no other plants, only the planted things, there are more of the planted that are alive. So it's a mix, it's a roller coaster. Of course, we could water a lot more, but then they also may not like it because it is too much. And as we are a little bit limited, we cannot really try this out experimentally. But on the other hand, if half of the plants would die, so to say, it's actually not a big problem, because the other half will still be available. And when it gets cooler and there's more rain, they of course will then also grow, and we still get a forest at the end. But then it's an effort to put 28,000 plants here, and lose half of it is then not so good. If you lose 10%, okay, that's okay. But then, as far as I understand the Miyawaki method, it is expected to lose quite a few. The question is how many. And then, of course, I think about the cost, not so much of the plants, but the labor, and something that is more effective, I think, would then be better. But we have to learn how it really goes. So therefore, the comparison that in a year from now we should then have. So that was an update of the Miyawaki forest, not from the air, but from the ground. And I think you guys will be happy now. There's also something else I should not forget to mention about irrigation. So you have basically two limitations: the water that is available and the time that you can use. So the day has only 24 hours, and if I irrigate now 8 hours throughout the night, then it's 8 hours, and that means 1 hour for the 8 sectors, for each of the 8 sectors. If now I want to irrigate other places and I have endless water, I still have the limitation of time. And an hour to irrigate a sector might not be enough. So therefore, we have to balance basically 3 things. So the overall time it takes to irrigate, the amount of water that is available, electricity, well, it's actually 4 things: the electricity, and then I need to count for the flow. So account for the flow. So if I use little water over an hour, it's that amount. And if I put other nozzles on those wobblers, then I get more water out of them, but then I have to have the supply. So all this needs to be figured out, and eventually one pump can only run 24 hours. And if I want to avoid the hottest part of the day, then I cut easily 8 hours out of the 24 when it is too hot and becomes ineffective to irrigate, because I lose more to evaporation. You guys have mentioned this before. So it is not so easy. And if I can definitely use 24 hours because I have the electricity, then it becomes easier. But right now, we do have to run the generator when we do this at night, and it kicks in 4 times during the night just to keep us alive electrically. And so this is not the easiest proposition. All this can be fixed, but it is a major undertaking, which means investment. If anyone has any money to spare, send it our way if you like to. But I can tell you, it's not $20 here and there. Things are a little bit more expensive. So to give you some ideas how much things cost here. So if I run an excavator, the big one, the Caterpillar 320, that's some 900 euros a day. So you can imagine, it's actually not that bad, but it adds up. Yeah. A soil sensor, it's 100 euros, and you end up having a lot of these so that you can manage this. A solenoid valve, it's also easily 120 euros. And those relays to control them, yeah, they are between 50 and 80 euros the piece. So it's like in a supermarket. You go in there and suddenly it says 250 at the cash register. And your grocery cart is half empty. And this is basically the situation here. I don't mind. We go at a pace as we can afford. And eventually I hope that everything will work out. But I tell this so that people listening here can understand why that is not so easy and why things sometimes slow down. So it's not only the money, it's also that I have to do other things or something we don't know yet. So there are a lot of factors why it goes a little bit erratic, seemingly from the outside, because we do not have a plan. We have to make this up as we go, and we have not done this before. It's not about coming in and installing a system. That would be easy and nice. Actually, I need to show you something here, which is quite remarkable and underpins what I said while I was outside the farmyard. So this is the future dog enclosure, and you see the irrigation helps to grow more and more things, including Bermuda grass. But here is the very positive thing. So this pond continues to stay like it is, because, as I said a few times in other videos, it is connected to the groundwater. I dug this to 3.5 meters, struck water, and that keeps it filled. Of course, nobody pumps water out of it, it just sits there and provides water for the dogs, but it is there. And so once the trees have found a way to tap into this, either directly, this tree could actually do that, or indirectly by reaching 3.5 meters, they will always have water, just like the oak trees. So I know my soil, my condition, my substrate, because I know it from the inside. It's not what is typical for the area. I know it exactly because I've seen it with my own eyes and touched it. So I definitely know what we are up to against and what works and what doesn't. And I have a long list of things that do not work here. Now, in the beginning, I was naive and went by what the literature and good meaning advice said. Not anymore. So now I'm a little bit more realistic what we can achieve and how to do it.